So let's go find the body distribution and let's go through the installation. If you have an installation, you can go ahead and fire up a terminal window, because while I'm downloading, we'll start going over Linux commands. So let's go get a version here. Oops. I'm gonna go look for, let's refresh this page. Body was up there in the list. Let's see, do I see it here now? It was listed as one of the better small, there's Body, way down here today, 206. So the downloads are declining apparently. Let's take a look at Body. I don't know if it's Bodhi or Body right now. And why is the link not coming up? Maybe I need to just go look for it. I'll just go look for Bodhi Linux.
1.2 gigabytes, that's tiny.
Yeah, pretty small download. I'm gonna go grab that, and then while it's grabbing it, boy, kind of slow here, I'm going to start a VM under workstation 17. So I'm over here in workstation 17, and I'll start a VM, or create a VM. We'll skip that update for now. Create a new VM. I always like to install the operating system later, because I've seen issues. If you give it the install file, it does some things that I'm not always happy with. So I'm going to skip that. Click Next, choose Linux, and Body, as far as I know, I don't think it's listed here because it's not well known enough. It is based on Ubuntu, so I'm going to go with Ubuntu 64-bit as my template. And I'm going to get the name Body, I'll say 2024. And it'll create that folder over in my C drive. I'm going to change that location because I want to preserve disk space on my C drive. I'm going to go over to my extra drive over here underneath my PC. Under the extra volume, my ATM VM, VMware VMs, and I'm going to make a folder in this place. I'm going to call it Body. The name of the folder doesn't have to match the name, but I try to make it match. Now that's the folder now he's going to use to save his VM files. 20 gigs. I just tried installing it and it froze on the install. I don't think it needs 20 gig, so I'll go with that. Let me make sure that I have the right amount of memory. 4 gigs seems like plenty for a small distribution, 2 processors. And the only thing I need to change now is where that ISO was pointing to. So the CD, change the ISO file. At this point, I need to go get the Bodhi, so let's go ahead and download him. The download should be pretty quick here. Except I am getting a slow response here. What's going on? I'm getting a slow response on my browser today. I can't even tell if he's going there. Let's see.
I got to the thing, like, what's the name of it? This screen.
Yep.
Like that.
Yeah, the install screen?
Yeah.
So you've already installed the ISO. Why am I taking so long? That's weird. Let's see. So you already got the image. Look at that. Mine is just taking forever to get there. I wonder if my browser is having issues. I do have several windows. I'll start closing down some browser windows here. I'm going to close this browser window. He's just not happy. He's just kind of frozen. I am running. Let's close some of these browser windows. There's my VM. Boy, some things are just not closing for me. I don't think it's because I'm recording. My recording window seems to be fine. Let's close a few things. I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'll cancel. Let's see, I got to specify. He wants me to specify a browser. I'll go ahead and use that and close and finish. I'll come back and adjust that because my poor system here is being very slow. Okay, let's see. I'm going to close down a few windows over here. My browser is just locking up on me. I'm closing windows here and there, multiple places, just to try to see what is happening on my machine here. I am not running any machine. None of my machines are running because that can really bog down your host if you're running multiple VMs. I don't see that running. My browser is just not letting me close windows as I try to see what's going on here. I'm closing down some command prompt windows over and on the other screen here. All right, now that did seem to speed something up. Now let's see if I can go get Bodhi now. Let's try this again. Let's go to Bodhi Linux and let's go to the download link. And now I'm going to get the standard release. There we go. So something was just not quite right. It takes me to SourceForge. I could have gone directly to SourceForge, look for Bodhi, and here comes my download. I'm saving it over to that downloads folder on my D drive. Going a little better now. Something was locking up in my browser. Okay, so while that's downloading, I'm going to bring up some discussion of Linux commands now. I'm going to cover Linux commands. Here we go, and use enter view. While that's downloading, I'll go check my download. Actually, I see it here. It hasn't even started yet. It says one's in progress. Oh, it's getting close to being done. While we're looking at that, let's take a look at some commands in Linux. When you're and way to get there is simply to bring up a terminal window once it's installed, and help is a command that should work. Depending on your flavor of Linux, help may not work. Every flavor of Linux, unless it's a really very light distro, they will have the man command available to you. Man being short for manual. Basically, show me the manual page for a specific command. There I see my Bodhi ISO has completed download, so I will now go to my VM and modify my Bodhi settings to have it see that ISO, which is over there in the downloads folder on that new volume. There's my Bodhi, and I click OK and play my machine. And like you saw, the install comes up pretty quick. I click to capture my keyboard, arrow down to the install now, and it begins to install. This is where I got like 90% done, and it just sat there and was not able to complete the last install. At some point it should ask me for users. So while that's running, we'll take a look at some commands that we're going to be wanting to run on our system. Is yours in the middle of install still?
Yeah, it says it's installing the system right now.
Yeah, and that's what's mine doing. Mine is doing as well. I went with the default natted system. It does appear to call home while it's installing. So, and there may be some network issues I was having. So while he's going through his install, I will go back to our commands, and I'll be putting that on my other screen to see how he's doing. Okay, so first thing we want to do as we log in is, well, want to know where we are. Sometimes your prompt, and most often your prompt is set to, by default, display your current working directory. So everything is based on where you are in the system when you're running commands. That's very important. If you're in the system location and you're running commands, just like with the Windows command line, and you do something to the files in there, you could damage your system. Linux makes it hard to do, but I'd say probably easier to do than with Windows. If once you're root, you can be root and it doesn't keep asking you, are sure you want to do this. You can do some very powerful things in any Linux version. I'm going to have it skip the install third party. I had this checked last time and it froze on me, so I'm going to skip that part. I can always come back and install third party. So let that continue now, and I think at this point, yes, I'm going to install now, erase disk and install. Some versions, when you come to this point, you actually have to manually partition your drive. Here you're auto partitioning, and you'll see what it's doing. It's creating an ESP partition and an ext4 partition. It used to create what they called a swap partition. I'm assuming ESP now is what used to be swap. Let's do a quick little look up here. ESP partition, Linux. The bootloaders. Okay. EFI system partition is what it comes across when I look up ESP. So this is my booting partition, a very special partition that needs extra protection. There's where I'm keeping all the other things. ext4 is the format that Linux uses in that partition. Windows uses NTFS, but Linux uses a slightly different format. And I'm going to continue there, and then I think it'll run through. I think it's done asking me questions except for time zone and I think my first user. So I'll continue my time zone, and I think it'll ask me, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do student. One thing that's harder in Linux is breaking into it if you forget your root password. It makes it a lot harder. I don't think it's impossible, but it is a lot harder. There we go. Now I think the install will continue. So while that's running, I'll watch it on the screen here. I'm going to go over the commands. This one here, print working directory, show me where I am. I don't know if is there an equivalent one in the command prompt in Windows. Let's bring up Windows command prompt just to see what the equivalent might be under Windows. So I'll put this over here, and let's do pwd. Windows doesn't have pwd, but I can see my prompt, shows me where I am. If I do dir under Windows, it shows me the directory where I am when I run the command. So there is my working directory. Seeing this is only an artifact of the way the prompt has been programmed for default in command prompt, showing you your working directory as your prompt. That gets kind of annoying when you're far down in a directory tree and your prompt is the entire width of your terminal. So pwd shows you your current directory. PD, I don't think there's a PD under Windows. So there's not a pwd in Windows. Show me my working directory. ls, though, is the Windows equivalent of dir. Show me what's in my files. ls under Linux shows me my current files. The format of what you see when you run ls is a little more interesting, and we're going to have to learn how that works. My install, let's see how it's going, is almost finished copying some files. And I think he'll then be doing the install after copying those files. When it is copying files, instead of ls, you're going to use cp. Under Windows, I can type help, and it shows me all my batch commands available for me in Windows command line. I don't recall the help on Linux giving me a nice short list like this. You have to kind of know what commands you're needing when you do man. You have to know what command you're trying to figure out. Here, if you're not sure what to do, you can type help, and you can do lots of other things. Right now, ls, let's say, show you up here, the dir is the display of list of files. Let's see, is there anything else like display files? Files, fsutil looks like it can display or configure file system properties. Copy under Windows will copy files. Under Linux, copy is cp. Now you can actually run a Linux-like window in Windows, Linux-like command prompt, but you have to download that software. Let's see how my install is going. Files 4 of 8. Now I do have several other Linux systems already installed, but I'm hoping Bodhi is not going to be a long install.
Mine is stuck, I think.
Mine was stuck at step 8 out of 9 in the installation. We'll see how things are going. If we need to, I can bring up one on my on the rack server. So ls for listing files, cp for copying files, and it's copying source to destination. cp file 1 copies file 1 over to file 2. Contents and ownership. No, up to C. I think ownership will become the owner of whoever is running the cp command. File 1 could be owned by someone else as long as they let you read it. When you copy it, you are creating a file that will then belong to you.
Whoa, you could use that to like do some crazy stuff.
Yeah,
couldn't you?
yeah. Now rm is very much like the Windows delete command that lets you delete files and you can do traversing multiple subfolders with the right commands. And my Bodhi is taking a little longer to complete. It seems to be stuck on file 4 of 8. I'm gonna see how it does, and in the meantime let me bring up a window into one of my Linux systems. Let's see what I have running on my server here in the lab. I'll even create a user for you if you like. I'm going to connect to a server here in the lab. These are my virtual machines running on a server. And what do we have here? Well, you have your Windows system running. See, if I have a Linux system running, I have a Ubuntu, I have a Manning Ubuntu. If I have some running already, I don't want to start more if I don't need to. Let's see. Looks like I don't have any other Ubuntus running, so I will run. How about firing this guy up? Power him on, and I will create a user for you to be able to connect to him. Now, under VMware, I think what we're running, version 6.5, I can start a console into my system and launch it. So it gives me an independent window rather than launching it from inside my browser. So here's my window into my system, and I see it's running Ubuntu. And it should come up fairly quickly, and I'll log in, and one of the first things I'm going to do is create a user for you. So you'll learn how to create new users. This is a very powerful command. I'm going to do the command line version. There are graphical versions, but it's best to use get used to using the command line.
I'm trying to find my password while you're doing that.
So here is my Ubuntu. And I can give you your new password if you're missing it.
Got it.
Okay. And I am bringing up command line. I can find it here from either the search or System Tools terminal. Q terminal is what runs commands in Linux.
Oh, sorry. I think I have a Ubuntu machine already.
Okay.
Actually, so I don't really know.
So you don't need, if you need to, I can create a login for you. Yeah, I'll just do it for fun, just to see how it's done.
Okay, let me follow along real quick.
If I want to create a user, that can also connect to this machine. I'm going to do sudo, meaning I have to be root to do this, and I'm going to create a add user, and I'll make it sconiglio. Hit enter. It needs to know my password initially, and I see I spelled my name wrong. And it's creating that new user. Now that user is able to log into my system, and I'm going to give you a password. I'll give you a password of cs230.2024, cs230.2024. It likes the password, it didn't reject me. I'm going to hit empty on all those other entries, and now I can do a ls/home. This says list all the files that are in the /home folder, and look at that, creating a new user using add user sconiglio has created a home file for that person. So now they can log into my system. If they wanted to log in, all they would have to do is putty into this system, and in order for putty to be working, I need to know what IP address I have. So I do IP address. Now, this system is on the student network in the lab, and here is his IP address, 172.16.2.137. So if you run putty on a Windows machine, I'm going to go ahead and bring up putty here. This is the power of the command shell, because if you have an IP address of a machine and you can putty into it, you can do so many things from the command line and not have to spend all the time trying to figure out how to get that graphical interface to show up to you. That's a much more difficult thing on remote systems. So if you're ever going to support a remote system, you need to know command lines. 137. So there's the IP address of the machine. I'm going to save it as a session. I'll save it as Lubuntu Manning. I'm going to save that and now open the session. And up pops putty. If I ever see this when I'm trying to connect with putty, that means the system does have a SSH server because it's seeing a key. I'm going to accept that host key forever. And now it should give me a login screen. And because I know there's both an AT-manig and a sconiglio, I know I can log in as either of those users. So I'm going to type in the misspelled AT-manig, put in my password. And here I have my login, command prompt login using putty. From any Windows system, I can connect with putty. Now you can connect, I'm going to see if I can connect with sconiglio by running putty again, and this time logging in as sconiglio. So I'm bringing up putty again. I have saved. There's my Lubuntu Manning. I'm going to go load and connect. And now it's asking for a login. I'll log in as sconiglio. And cs230.2024. And I'm in as sconiglio. pwd shows that when I log in, my working directory is home sconiglio. Now I'm going to log out. See that here, there are no folders in your home folder. I'm going to log out either by hitting Control-D or typing exit. That logs me out. Nice thing about using putty instead of this graphical is I can copy paste things from my window into documentation of the output of any command. Where here, unless I install the additional tools, I don't have that capability. So I would have to install VMware tools, which is a little more difficult, not super hard, but a little more difficult under Lubuntu. Okay, so I have a Lubuntu system running. Let me check on my Bodhi system. It is running slow, but I'm actually made progress. Now I'm retrieving file 7 of 8 on my Bodhi system, taking longer than I expected on the install. I'm gonna also do a fresh Lubuntu install under Workstation 17 just to see if Bodhi is just, maybe it calls home and gets a lot of extra things here when it's doing the retrieving. Seems like it's taking longer than it should to do that install. I've never done Bodhi yet, so I wanted to see what it's like. It seems to be it was mentioned by the AI as a good system to run on an older device.
The Bodhi is?
Yeah, that's what the mention of it. So I'm bringing up PuTTY again, and another way to connect is if I have it saved, I can just double click on that, it automatically connects. And now I'm going to log in as AT Manning.
So on my Lubuntu, when I do IP address, how do I know the one that I'm looking at is the IP address of the VM?
Yeah, you're going to see probably a 192 address. You should get a loopback. You'll see a loopback, and you know that's just your loopback address. You should see something like this, a second version that has an Ethernet 6 address as well, and then you're not gonna have a 172 unless you're bridging on your system. You'll see probably a 192 address.
I think I'm bridged because.
Are you getting a 172 address?
Yeah.
Because we do have a DHCP server running in this lab, you should likely get a 172.16 address.
Okay.
My Bodhi just finished, so I'm going to go ahead and restart him and see how he behaves now. So what he does is when you do an install, it creates all those partitions, and then you'll get this. You need to remove the installation medium. Here's the easiest way to remove the installation medium. I go to Player, Manage, Settings. I switch the CD from ISO image either to not connected at power on. That's the same as taking it out, because see, it won't let me use physical drive anymore. So I'm just going to say, okay, don't connect. I'll leave that file there, but when I reboot, it won't see it as connected. So I click OK, and then I just hit enter here, and now it's rebooting. Let's see how fast a reboot in Bodhi goes. This is the first reboot. Sometimes the first boot is slower than subsequent. Booting up, giving some system messages. Oh, look at that! That was a pretty quick boot. And that's cs230. Oh, that was different. 311 IoT. There's my student logging in to Bodhi. Not too bad of a login. Now, we have a fresh system here. Remember, I'm running as a VM now on this machine. This one here is running as a VM on our lab server, so he's not bridged. Or yeah, he's acting as though he bridged because he's directly on their network. This other guy, let's get him. Let's change him to bridge so you can connect him too if you want. But first, let's see what we get before bridging him. Let's try the right-click menu. No applications are set to favorites. Let's go to what I'm assuming is my menu. I don't even know if that is. Is that a terminal? That's terminology. That's the file manager. That's the Chromium web browser. Let's go to this guy and let's look for settings. No, how about I'm looking for a terminal. Try applications. Applications.
Works, I think.
System tools. I need a terminal. Internet, browser, graphics, preferences. I don't have a terminal yet. Let's see here. Places. Quick launcher. Oh, I'm surprised I can't get to a terminal here, settings panel. It's wanting me to go graphical. Maybe that's why people love it. It's more graphically based. I wanted to bring up, look at that, I don't get a terminal. Usually I'd expect it here in System Tools. I wonder what this terminology is. That feels like they misnamed that. See what happens if I run that. Yep. Terminology is not terminology. It is a terminal. Okay. Now, ls under Bodhi shows me, oh, look at that. By default, I have in the student folder multiple folders created. Unlike under Lubuntu, it doesn't automatically create those subfolders. Let's do IP address. See what address I have. Since I am not bridged, I am getting this address for my VM. And because I'm NATed, I believe it's not on the host-only network. I can't connect to my system over my network. Let's go ahead and bridge him just to see if there's a way for me to connect to him over PuTTY. So I'm going to go to Player, Manage, Settings, and I'm going to set his network to be bridged this time. And I click OK. And typically what you do, if you've messed with the network, sometimes it sees the change in the network. It looks like it did see some. It says I'm disconnected. Let's see if it now reconnects here. It should reconnect. It saw the change in the network. It pops some messages up. I'm going to click to capture my mouse, and I'm going to type up arrow to remember my previous command and hit enter and see if I have a 172 address assigned. So now I have this address assigned to me, telling me, oh, he did successfully change from NAT to bridged, but he is not yet running SSH server, open SSH server. Let's see if I can do that install. This is one of the first things I do when I'm installing a system. Sudo, let's see, I think Bodhi is apt based. Let's see, apt install open SSH-server. Let's see if I get a recognition of apt. Since I did sudo, he wants my password. And it says, maybe I want to open SSH SFTP server. I don't think I want that. One thing I forgot to do when I plan to do apt, I should do this first. Sudo apt update. You always want to do an update before searching for things. Let's see if that works. Then I'll try my open SSH server again. I always want to run a update before I try to go install something. Whenever you're administering, adding software, you want to be sure you get the latest versions of things, and your system knows all the dependencies. Now it seems to be taking a long time to connect to Canonical. I don't think I need to set. Oh, he finally came through. Now we'll try the open SSH server again after this finishes. Let's up arrow. Let's try open SSH server again. apt install open SSH-server. And look at that. Now it did find open SSH server. And I'm going to say yes, I do want to install that. And it won't take very long because it's not a huge package. And I think I remember that I'll get PuTTY ready to connect to this guy. Firing up PuTTY. Where is my PuTTY? I'm going to start up a new PuTTY. I'm going to connect to him once I know his address. So I know it's a 172.16. I think it was 2.132, but I'm going to check. Up arrow. Remember I did the IP address command. My last IP 172.16.2.132. There it is. I'm going to save that as Bodhi Manning. Save, and now double click on Bodhi Manning. I get the, hey, I'm getting a key. Yes, I want to accept the key. And now I'm going to log into that Bodhi Manning system now. as student, because that's the user I created on that system. And now I am logged into the Bodhi system from the student network because I bridged him, making him available to this machine, this Windows machine, as well as all other machines in this lab. So that program, SSH server, that's the one you want to install after running apt update, sudo apt update. Run as root, apt update, then he was successful at installing OpenSSH server. Now that I'm in, and I can enlarge this font, I could just as well run the terminal here, but I like knowing that I can connect to my system remotely from anywhere on the network. Now, let's play with some more Linux commands. So, OpenSSH server is the only thing you need installed so you can use PuTTY to connect in over the network. And of course, you need it to be on the right network for you to connect to. Now I'm here in the command prompt, and I'll bring this over here and bring up my presentation here, which is way over here in the background. Now, let's do things from the Linux window. Okay, pwd shows me where I'm at. Notice here, the prompt on Linux by default, and you can change this, there's a way to change your prompt, is to show you who you are and what your system name is when I'm connected in from the terminal. When I'm on the system over here, notice I get that same prompt there as well. My username and my system name. If you would prefer to see the current working directory in your prompt, there's a way to figure out how to have that show up as your prompt. Won't worry about it now. So pwd shows me where I am. If I want to be somewhere else, cd. cd/ means let's move my current directory up to the main root of my system. And to see what's there, I can do ls. This shows me what's at the very top level root of my Linux system. Now, I don't have to cd over there to list what's in there. I can do a cd, enter, and my pwd automatically becomes home. cd without any parameters takes me back home. So I can always do this. I can do ls/, and that will show me what's at the root level. But what's more interesting is ls-al. Let's try -l/. That shows me a list of what's up there at the main level. ls-al/ is about the same list, but it will show me a few extra files that might be hidden if I do -al versus a -l. It looks like al and l gave me the same results here. What's cool about this is I can see the dates and the owners and permissions of files when I view the long format of my listing. Now, dir under Windows does have parameters as well, but ls-l or ls-al is what you want to use when you want to see what is here where I'm at. Now, if you want to know what all the parameters are for ls, you can just type man ls, and it will give you the manual page of that command. And there's the internet pages as well for man pages of Linux for about every command under Linux. So if you don't have man installed, man is another application, you can go to the internet and look for the manual for a particular command. I'm going to stretch my window and do this a bit more. So man of any command shows you all the options, and there's a gazillion options for ls. -a, do not ignore entries starting with a dot. So if you have dots as the beginning of a name of a folder, it's like a hidden folder. You won't see it unless you add the -a to the ls. And if I hit space, it'll take me down to the L. What the L means, use a long listing format. Lots of other options here for just to confuse you with all the capabilities of Linux. Don't worry about memorizing all those other options. Just know that ls just shows you your files. ls-l shows you the long format. ls-al shows you all those dot files. And the dot files do become more interesting as you try to learn about local profiles for things. Like if I want to change my prompt, I mess with my dot profile. Okay, so that was the PWD. What have we covered so far? Man, PWD, LS, CP. Let's go ahead and make a folder. Let's go down to our documents folder. So I CD space DOC. Now he can hit tab and it will autocomplete. And PWD, there's where I am. LS, there's nothing here. Let's make a folder called test. Mecdir test. This makes a folder called test. ls-al or ls-l because there's no other folders but the dots that aren't interested in. The dot folder is the folder I'm in. The dot folder is the folder above me. If you ever care about using those, which you occasionally do. Here I see I've just created a folder called test. How do I know it's a folder? It has a D over here in front of it, and also because of the way it's colored based on my profile. Now let's go down into that test folder. But first, let's create a folder in there. Let's do a CP. Let's see, what do I have to copy? ls/, let's see, I want to create a file. I don't have any files right now. Let's create a file. Let's do a echo hello, and let's send the output to a file called hello.txt. The greater than is a redirection. I can send my output of the hello command, of the echo command, to the hello file. And I hit enter, and now I do ls-l, and I see I've just created a file called hello.txt. I want to copy that file, cp hello, and I can hit tab to autocomplete the name of my file. Copy it to the test folder, / and I'll call it hello2, hello2.txt. CP for copying a version of the file. Notice the destination path can include the complete path and PWD here, ls test, meaning show me what's in the test folder, and I don't think I can put the -l at the very end. Let's see if it will accept that. Oh, actually it will. Sometimes it doesn't like you putting the parameters except right after the command, but I see here it allows the -l, gives me the long format of what it found in the test folder that is right beneath my current working directory. Let's, for fun, find out what in the world CP does for me. Let's try a which CP. I find that which tells me where in the world the command is when I run CP, what command is actually running. So I see that the CP command is actually a file over there in the user bin folder. Let's do a ls-l of /user/bin/cp. And let's find out about this CP program. Look at that. It is a program of size 2022, created February 7th, owned by root. Here's the size of it. Created February 7th, 2022. So whenever I run a command, just like under Windows, the path system, the path variable determines where it looks when I run a command. If I type set, it shows me all the things that are set in my environment, and somewhere up here I will see a long path determining where I go when I type a command in. Look at the path variable. It's not super long, but there's other things crazy long having to do with colors on my terminal. You can read all about that if you want to try to change colors. But this is all crazy environment stored variables, very much like Windows has environment variables. Typing the set command shows you all your saved environment variables. This is the only one I care about for now. Is whenever I type a command, it looks here in user local sbin, then user local bin, then user bin, then user sbin, user bin. I can add to this path if I add other program into my system. So Linux has lots of crazy things in the environment These other things are like little built-in scripts that you don't have to worry about, but just typing the set command shows you all that crazy stuff. Lots more to learn under Linux. I've given you a little Quizlet, just a little practice learning Linux commands, Quizlet, little test and help you memorize. That assignment is out there on Schoology just for you to practice some commands. That's just part of it. You actually have to do some things, like I'll give you an assignment for creating a certain file structure just using command lines or commands from the command line or the terminal. And we'll just keep practicing this as we build up our Linux skills. So that's it for today. Ran a little bit over time. Sorry about that.
That's